All right, so we're officially getting started. I'm a graduate of FIT. I graduated in 2008 with a BFA in graphic design. I'm currently working on a master's degree from SUNY Polytechnic on information design and technology. As a graphic designer, I was always very interested about technology. So I started learning how to code during my senior year, and I had an opportunity to get an internship at a small publishing company, and basically my job was to create pages for an e-commerce site. So that's how I started getting into technology. I think it's important these days that we don't see ourselves choose as users of technology, but also creators of technology. And that's why I always telling my students, you need to learn how to create technology. And the way we create technology is by knowing some basic programming, right? You don't have to be the best programmer or work as a software developer, but I believe that these skills are very attainable. So right now I work as a manager of digital development at a Fortune 500 company. I'm also teaching currently at FIT in the IIM department, illustration and interactive media department, and also had taught a few courses in the continuing education department with FIT. Some of these courses are around web development, and some others are around immersive applications, augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. So let's talk about what is the metaverse. So it's definitely a buzzword. There's not such a thing as one metaverse. A metaverse is a group of technologies that promise to bring human interaction to a persistent digital twin world or platform. Okay, so if we look at the metaverse the same way that we look at the internet, we are thinking of a family of technologies that gives us ways of interacting not only with each other, but with different types of content. Okay, so these technologies include VR, AR, mixed reality, and I think that what really puts this vision together is the blockchain. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the blockchain. Now, these technologies are nothing new. Okay, so VR has been around for at least a decade. AR has been also around for many years. Mixed reality is more new, but also blockchain. Blockchain is probably one of the newest technologies of this group. Now, what composes the blockchain is cryptography and distributed computing. So to this point, we had those as separate fields of technology, but what the blockchain did was to put those together. Okay, so that's kind of where the innovation came from. And the first blockchain we all know it. At least we heard about it, was Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was the first blockchain. So why this metaverse became so popular? The term is not new either. It was coined by author Neil Stevenson in 1992. It was a novel called Snow Crash. And you probably heard about the movie Ready Player One, which is inspired by that novel, Snow Crash, where there was a utopian world where one company kind of dominated this virtual world where all humans had to escape to because real life was um, so mundane and so boring or so not worth living. So most people then try to live their lives in this metaverse. Okay. Now, the reason why we heard about all of this was because Facebook basically changed the entire brand and the entire strategy to the metaverse. And they basically took a 360 um, um, change where they rebranded the entire company. Facebook is a massive, massive company. And we know Facebook as the website where you go and connect with your friends and share photos and join events, but Facebook is a family of applications, right? So Facebook owns Instagram, Facebook owns WhatsApp, and Facebook owns Oculus, which is a virtual reality headset company. So the vision was to bring all of those technologies together into one platform, into one way of interacting called the metaverse. And that's when the term kind of exploded in the media. All right. Now, let me just take a pause there to make a good point. Virtual reality is not the metaverse. Virtual reality is a form in which you could experience the metaverse. It's a platform in which you could experience the vision of a metaverse. But most people think that metaverse means putting on a headset and being part of some virtual world. Okay, so we know the metaverse is a group of technologies. It's not a technology. It's not a metaverse. There could be many metaverses, the same way that there are many websites and companies in the web. So JP Morgan did a study, and they predict that the metaverse will become a 1 trillion market opportunity. It predicts that it will be a 1 trillion market opportunity. If we go back to the early days of the web, of the internet, I mean, who could have predicted that the internet is what it is today, right? We do transactions through the internet. We buy goods and services through the internet. We experience media and consume content through the internet, right? So we're going to talk about the evolution of the internet as we know it, from Web 1.0 to Web 2.0 to Web 3.0, which is where we're heading. Now, the opportunities in the metaverse are very wide. These are a great opportunity for creators, designers, and marketers to get the skills and get jobs in the metaverse. Companies are investing on this. Companies see the vision, and we're going to talk about how some companies, like Nike, in all different sectors, retail, fashion, even food, are bringing their brands to the metaverse. Okay, so we know the technology, we know the opportunity, and we are in that particular moment where things are evolving very quickly. So this is an evolving field. Now, some people might argue that the metaverse is going to become an obsolete term, just like cyberspace became an obsolete term. So in the early days of the internet, people used to call it the cyberspace, right? No one uses that term anymore. So some experts are predicting that the term metaverse will very soon become obsolete. So it is one way in which the media refers to all of these technologies and trends. But some people might argue that it doesn't really convey what Web3 and is supposed to bring to the users, the value that Web3 is supposed to bring to users. So when we see about the evolution of online interactions, we have the first iteration of the web was document-based, and it was only meant for users to consume information, to access and consume information. So it was just a series of documents that you could read online through a browser using a computer that is connected to the internet. Back then, it was a hard connection, right? So we had a modem, and there was a physical cable that would connect to your phone line, and that's how you access Web 1.0. Now, when we go to Web 2.0, now the internet becomes a two-way street. There's participation. There is, it becomes a multi-device internet that we can access through our desktop, through our laptops, through mobile phones, through tablets. It becomes wireless. So now we don't have the limitations of using a wire to access the internet. Now we have the technology to connect to the internet using wireless connections. Like, we started with 2G, then 3G, and the next evolution of all of that is 5G. and now there's even talk of 6G. And then we started doing transactions through the internet. So taking credit card payments and being able to purchase goods and services through the web. Okay. There's also the Internet of Things, which uses the internet to connect devices like doors, thermostats, screens to other computers. Now, when we look at Web 3.0, that's the next iteration of the internet. Still the internet, still using the same infrastructure, stay using the same protocols, but now we're using it a different way. So now we're talking about a multi-platform internet, okay? Something that we can access through different platforms, whether that's virtual reality, augmented reality, web. We're also talking about 3D, so being able to deploy full 3D experiences through the web using an internet connection. And we also talking about ownership and decentralization. So in the Web 2.0 model, uh, we don't own anything. The data is owned by the company. The reason why things like Facebook, Google, they are free is because we are basically the product. They are harvesting our data that they can then later sell to marketers. And that's the prevalent business model. They're selling ads, basically. They're using our data to sell us targeted ads. Now, in Web 3.0, at least this is the vision. And again, this is an evolving conversation. All of this is in very early stages. So it's kind of difficult to predict where this is going to move and how sooner or later the government is going to have to step in, right? So we are seeing it now with cryptocurrencies. If you did your taxes this year, you probably noticed that there was a question regarding whether or not you sold cryptocurrencies. Okay, so legislation and policy is always kind of playing catch up with technology, and Web 3.0 is the case. We still don't know how governments are going to uh, adopt this Web 3.0 vision. And when it comes to ownership and decentralization, now we're talking about the blockchain. We're talking about people being able to own their own digital assets that they can uh, bring with them to all these different platforms, and also the blockchain as a public ledger, a technology where every transaction is recorded and verified and is visible to anyone in the network. Okay, so it's a big promise, and it's a revolutionary way of seeing things because we live in a centralized world, right? We have a centralized government, we have a centralized banking system, we have a centralized education system. Everything works in a centralized way in society. What these technologies are promising is decentralization. It's a disruption of all those. You can almost think of them as old school or old world models. Okay, so at least that is the promise. We're still not there yet. There's still a long way for us to get to that point. But as I said, things are evolving fairly quick, and there is a lot of developments almost on a weekly basis regarding things like the blockchain, virtual reality, augmented reality. All right, so now let's talk about what makes a metaverse a metaverse. All right, so this is a graphic put together by John Radoff. It is Creative Commons, so it's free to use. And what we have here is the different things that are going to bring this metaverse or metaverses together. We're still a few years away from this vision. Okay. In the announcement, Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, he said that we're probably 5 or 7 years away from having all of this in a good place that it can bring that promise of the metaverse. And first, we have the experience. So when we're talking about experience, we're talking about gaming, we're talking about social esports, which is a huge field. Okay, there are universities offering esports degrees. They are professional esports players that make a living out of playing video games and tournaments. They get sponsorships, they create content. So that's probably one of the areas where there is a lot of investment. We know that gaming is bigger than Hollywood, is bigger than the entire Hollywood industry. Okay, so there's more money and spending in gaming than there is in actual movies. We have things like theater, shopping, events, virtual events. So that's the experience. We could also throw education in there. How bringing education into a virtual metaverse experience is going to change the learning experience for students, right? Then we have the discovery. So how are we going to manage that content? How are we going to monetize that content or those experiences? Then we have the creator economy, which we already have it now. You know, there's people that make a living out of Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, um, streaming services like Twitch. So this, all of those platforms have become a way for for creators to actually earn money. Then we look into the technology that powers all of this, which is spatial computing. So if we are looking at a metaverse, we know that probably the one thing that all of this has in common is that we're dealing with 3D assets of some sort, 3D models. And that's where 3D engines come into the picture. So the two leading 3D engines are Unity and Unreal. So these are new skills that designers and creators need to learn in order to become creators in the metaverse. Now we're getting to the whole blockchain. So how are we going to use the blockchain to allow people to have ownership of those assets, that they can actually port them over? So one of the big promises of blockchain and the metaverse is that I can own my assets in any platform that I want. So they are mine. Just like you can take your, you know, your physical belongings to another house, you could possibly take your own digital assets from one game to another or from one experience to another. And then we need to talk about the human interface. So the different hardware requirements that are needed in order for us to experience this three-dimensional metaverse. And now we get into things like smart glasses, wearables, voice, and then the infrastructure. So how are these devices going to communicate with each other? How are we going to be able to exchange all of this data? We need really fast internet connections, and we need them wirelessly. So now we get into 5G, we get into Wi-Fi 6, 6G, cloud infrastructure. So in order for this to work, to deliver this promise of the metaverse, you know, it basically needs support, infrastructure support. Okay. If you look at countries like South Korea, for example, they're way advanced when it comes to broadband access that the US. You have countries like Singapore that are way advanced when it comes to broadband access. So there has to be an investment. There has to be an infrastructure investment, you know, for all of this to happen. Okay, so when we look at the hardware, and this is a very related to immersive. So immersive technologies that would allow us to experience a type of metaverse, which will be VR, AR, and mixed reality. So what do you need to experience these different technologies? Again, this is something that is constantly evolving. We have in the US, we have the Oculus Quest 2. So that's the dominant virtual reality headset. It's owned by Facebook, so it's part of the whole Meta family. And you can get a refurbished Oculus Quest for $250 at Walmart, or you can buy a brand new one for $300. And and obviously a device so sophisticated like this doesn't cost $300. So strategy that Meta is implementing here is they're giving you the device at a loss. So when it comes to the device itself, these companies, the strategy that they're following is they're giving you the device at a loss with the expectation that you're going to purchase experiences, games, and apps through their marketplace, right? The same strategy that Microsoft used with Xbox. Microsoft doesn't make a penny selling you an Xbox. They make money selling you the video games and selling the video game makers the opportunity to sell their games through their platforms. Okay, so that is what consumer level can offer us in the US, because things are very different in Asia. In Asia, there's a more broad market of these headsets. In the US, this is pretty much what we have. Now, there used to be those Google Cardboards where you could use your phone and put it inside a headset, like a box. That has been discontinued. So what that gave you was 3 degrees of freedom, basically allowed you to look up, down, left, and right. That was it. Oculus discontinued their 3 degrees of freedom product, which was called Oculus Go. They're not making it anymore. Google discontinued their own virtual reality product, which was called Google Daydream. That was also 3 degrees of freedom. You can't buy this anymore. So 3 degrees of freedom at this point is kind of dead. It's a dead technology. So now we have 6 degrees of freedom, which is what Oculus Quest can offer us. And 6 degrees of freedom is basically looking up, down, left, right, and also moving forward and backwards. So now you can detect the entire space with these devices. And the way that works is through cameras. So as you notice, there's cameras around these devices. And this is what you call inside out tracking. So the device is tracking the world from the inside out. Now we have the enterprise products, which is the Magic Leap 1. They already announced the Magic Leap 2. This could cost you anything from $2,500 to $3,000. These are what you call mixed reality devices. And as you notice, they're not covered. So they're not covering your vision. You can actually see through lens. And what they're doing is they're placing virtual objects in the real world, but they're also detecting the shapes and the depth and the space in that room where you are. So this is called spatial computing. So it's using cameras and it's using algorithms and it's using lasers to basically map the entire environment. And then we have the HoloLens, which is it's a Microsoft product. Those are used for enterprise. So this could cost you, $3,500 to $4,000. There's a new player. It's called Nreal. It's a Chinese product. They started selling in the US. They've been selling in Europe for a while. And it is for the price, it is something that it could be interesting as a way of introducing immersive technologies to the classroom because it's affordable. And the only problem is that it's connected to the phone. So it's not a standalone device. It's a device that depends on the phone in order to operate. Okay, so this is basically what you can get in the US. There's other devices, but they usually are imported and they probably don't have that much support. Of course, there's HTC and HTC One. Those tend to be more on the higher range, but at a basic level, Oculus Quest is a very, very powerful device. It is packed with hardware features. And Facebook Meta is constantly updating their software so the device can use those features. So basically, they packed a lot of hardware features in the device when the software wasn't even ready to use those features. So they have been releasing updates. Right now with Oculus Quest, you can actually use hand tracking. So you don't even need the controllers anymore. You could just interact in virtual reality only using your hands. Okay, and that's something that was not available when they launched the product. So it's been very rewarding for people that bought an Oculus Quest from the very beginning. They got what they thought was a product, but they have been, with software updates, they have been extending what that product can do. So In terms of augmented reality, if you want to bring these experiences to the classroom, this could work very well with just a regular phone, with a regular mobile phone. Anything with a tablets as well. Usually the latest generations, because these augmented reality experiences can be very heavy on the device. So one of the things that you're going to notice is that your phone is going to get very, very warm. And it's going to get to a point where it's going to send you a message and say your phone is overheating. Please stop the application or turn off your phone and use it later. So that's probably a hardware limitation. With the latest version of iPhone, not the 13, but the 12, the 12 Pro, these phones are equipped with something called a LiDAR scanner. So there's actually an extra lens in here, which is a technology called LiDAR. And this is technology that the military has been using for many decades. This is what they used to do, terrain mapping. And that's what archaeologists use to discover, things on the ground and, pyramids, Mayan pyramids in the jungle. So basically it's a laser. With this technology, you can actually map an entire room in real time, in 3D. So this is an incredibly powerful technology that you have basically in your pocket. Now, it is rumored that Apple is going to launch their own mixed reality device. There's a lot of rumors around it. They have been acquiring companies, hardware companies. They have been making very strategic hires in this department, and the rumor is that they might launch a virtual reality product by 2023, somewhere in 2023. If Apple does this, I believe that this is what is going to bring the metaverse to the mainstream consumer. And if you have been paying attention in the news, Apple now is going to do their own financing. They're basically going into financing themselves. Usually, Apple finances their products through a third party, could be the cell phone company or a credit card company. Now they're going to do financing themselves. So I could see a world where you could, let's say, get the phone and also get the headset device and put it in an installment plan, because it's not going to be cheap. This device is probably going to be in the thousands of dollars, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. So no, there's a lot of people not going to be able to acquire this device or put this device on the credit card. So what they're going to do is they're going to partner with the cell phone companies or with the internet companies to give you a bundle, and then you can pay the device in installments. I believe that if they do that, that's what's going to bring immersive technologies to the mainstream consumer market. Right now, still a little bit of a niche market, right? Especially in gaming. This is where the Oculus Quest shines, is in gaming. But there are industries that are using immersive technologies for training, professional training, especially in construction, right? You could do safety training. These companies are bringing this into the classrooms. There are schools that are experimenting with virtual classrooms. So the enterprise applications are still very new. All right, so we talked about immersive technologies. Now let's talk about the blockchain. So how do we put all this together and to build this vision of the metaverse? So just as a review, because I know that most of you probably already attended the first talk, what the blockchain is a public decentralized ledger. So it is a ledger that records transactions, that is connected to a network of nodes, in other words, computers that are verifying these transactions in real time. So the technicalities of how that works, we could spend a whole, afternoon discussing that. But the promise of the blockchain is that it doesn't leave a space for fraud, and it basically is transparent and accountable. So when it comes to the blockchain, probably one of the most popular applications that we heard about in the news is Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin it was the first blockchain. And what Bitcoin does for us is offer us the opportunity to use a digital currency. Unfortunately, we all know that It's not how it's being used. It's being used as an investment mechanism. So I'm not giving you any type of financial advice, but unless we get to the point where these digital currencies are actually accepted by the mainstream, there's still going to be vehicles for speculation. And that's what we see with Bitcoin. That's what you see the swings in prices, right? Let me see what the price of Bitcoin is right now. So right now, the price of Bitcoin is $40,000 and 183. So yesterday was 38. So and that's not even a big difference. It could go to 22 by tomorrow morning. So unfortunately, these cryptocurrencies are being used as speculative financial vehicles. When it comes to NFTs, that's when we get into the utility, the utility value of the blockchain. And we all heard about NFTs. We keep hearing about them. So where things are at this moment is we have different blockchains. So we have different ecosystems where people and developers are creating blockchain applications. So we have Bitcoin, which is purely a digital currency. That's all it can do. But this new brand or this new family of blockchains or cryptocurrencies, what allows to do is to write smart contracts in the code, in the blockchain. So that's what Ethereum did. So Ethereum became very popular because of that. It allowed developers to actually write pieces of code into those transactions. So what do you need to use a blockchain? You probably need a wallet. So this is the most popular Ethereum wallet. It's called MetaMask. And the wallet is going to have a unique address. That's what you call your wallet address. Okay, now remember the whole point of cryptocurrencies is that they are anonymous. So you don't need to associate your identity with that particular address. You can keep it anonymous. If you want, you might want to associate it with like your email address or maybe an account, but most of the time, wallets are anonymous. They are anonymous, but they're visible. They're public. So I could look into your wallet. So if I know your wallet address, I could look into your wallet to see what you have in there. I can see how much crypto you have. I can see how many NFTs you have. Remember, this is in a public ledger. This ledger is public. Anyone can look into every single transaction that happens in the blockchain. If you want to buy crypto at this point, you're probably going to have to exchange currency, dollars, for crypto. Very early on, the way that people acquired crypto was by actually mining the crypto. So they will use their computer to solve very complex algorithms, and as reward, they will get crypto. So that's basically how the blockchain is verified, with computing power. And those people, those owners of those computers or those mining devices, they get paid back in actual crypto. Okay. So why is this so popular and why do we hear about it on the news all the time? It's probably because of Bitcoin, the prices of Bitcoin, and also NFTs. So NFTs are non-fungible tokens. And how do you interact with NFTs? Well, there's NFT markets. So there's places where you can actually buy and trade and list your NFTs. There are virtual worlds like Decentraland, when you can buy virtual land with crypto and use that land for many things. You can exchange it, you can rent it, you can resell it, and also blockchain gaming. So basically games in which if you achieve a certain level of task, you get rewarded with tokens, with NFT tokens. Okay, so the app, now we're getting into the utility of an NFT. So it's no longer a public record in a ledger. Is something that is actually delivering value. Okay, you probably recognize this image. Yeah, so this is the first 5,000 days. It was the first NFT sold by a major auction house. It was I believe it was Christie's. it was sold for $69 million. So I have a problem with this. So when you hear about in the news that an NFT sold for an amount of dollars, I believe that that's misleading, because that NFT sold for an amount of crypto. I think that as long as we still associating regular currency, the value of crypto, to a regular government issue currency, we're not we're not really bringing the value of crypto. Crypto should be worth what crypto is worth to those users or to those communities. Okay, it's just because crypto is being used as a speculative financial asset that we still think of crypto in its value to American dollars. Okay, so you don't know how these people acquired that cryptocurrency. The person that bought that NFT, you don't know how they acquired that cryptocurrency. Maybe they mined it very early on. Maybe there is a pool. Maybe it's something that's come from a DAO, that's a decentralized organization, and or maybe it was it was acquired in a different way. So someone in the chat asked, let's see, saw something pop up in the chat. I don't know how to get the chat back.
It's a question from Michael. Is this not the value based on American dollars?
That is the value based on American dollars. But what I'm saying is, until we use crypto for its value as crypto, we're never gonna break that paradigm of fiat currency, right? So as long as we're still thinking of the value of crypto as what is value in American dollars, then it's not really crypto. It's not really uh, uh, it's not really what the promise of decentralization is offering us. We're still thinking in terms of dollars, and then dollars is government centralized currency. So most people envision a world, maybe in the next 10, 20, 30 years, where we are going to live in a multi-currency society. Right now, the dollar is king, right? The dollar is the dominant currency in the world. But why? Why is, who made that deal? Who decided that the dollar was going to be the main currency of the world? Who decided that the only way you can buy oil is with American dollars? Why can't you just buy oil with rubles, for example? So someone decided that someone wanted to make that the rule. So the whole point of decentralization is that people will have the actual power to to create a system in which is the people actually going to be the ones to decide. Now, yes, you can convert cryptocurrencies into dollars for a hefty fee, and that's what these cryptocurrency exchanges do. Things like Coinbase, for example, um, they make money out of that conversion, converting dollars into crypto. Now, you can convert crypto into other crypto at a very minimal price. Okay, so as if we still thinking in crypto in the terms of what is value into dollars, I feel like that we're still kind of living in the old system, right? Because we're still going back to dollars. But if I can get to a point where if I can tell Jose, say, Jose, can you help me out with this project? Is it okay if I pay you in Solana? And you're like, yeah, sure, pay me in Solana. How much do you want to charge me? Well, right now, I don't know, give me 3.5 Solana. If we can still think in terms of exchanging crypto for crypto, I believe that that's what the value is. But if we're still thinking of converting that amount of crypto into dollars in our head, we're still kind of living in the old system of currency, of fiat currency, of government issued currency, right? So that's an interesting point. Is it going to happen? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. Very soon, there's a lot of discussions amongst governments of what are they going to do, right? What are we going to do with this crypto thing? Okay, we have governments like the PRC, the People's Republic of China, that are issuing their own digital currency in the blockchain. It's called the digital yuan, right? So governments are taking this very seriously, and they are thinking not only about the implementations, but the repercussions of making that type of move. But okay, we're getting all philosophical here. So let's talk about the smart contract. So NFT as collectibles. We all, you know, are related to FIT, so we know the value of art. Art has different value. It has emotional value. It has tangible value, right? So, for example, when I travel, anytime that I visit a new country, I try to buy a piece of art and I bring it home. That has value to me. Okay, I'm collecting those for my own satisfaction. Now, if you grew up, in comic books or baseball cards, now you're dealing with a collectible that has value to other people, something that can be exchanged and traded, right? Sold and traded. Collectible baseball cards, Pokemon cards. Um, if you're into soccer, there's the album, the Panini album for the World Cup. You know, those stickers have a value. They're rare. They have a scarcity, and they can be traded and sold, right? So if you've done that in the real world, that's easy to do in the digital world, and that's done with NFTs. So NFTs as collectibles. Now, a lot of people say, "Oh, but that's just a JPEG. I could just take a picture of the JPEG, or I could just do a screenshot." The value is not the art. The value is the record in the blockchain. That's what you're trading. The art itself is what made you believe that that particular piece of art was appealing to you. Okay, so if you look at a lot of the NFT collections, they're ugly. They're really silly, right? Like apes with hats and cats shooting rainbows out of their mouth. It's silly stuff, but it has value in the terms of the community that supports that market. Now, is there fraud? Is there artificial demand? Yes, absolutely. So there is in the art world, right? The art world also has that problem. Galleries inflate the the price of a particular artist, so they can profit more from it. So that's nothing new. I mean, all the fact that there's fraud and there's artificial scarcity, that happens in the real world. It happens with oil, it happens with diamonds, it happens with all kinds of real assets. So you just have to be careful. You just have to be very careful when you buy NFTs, because one big issue with the markets right now is they're not doing a good job at preventing fraud. So let's say I launch my own NFT collection on OpenSea. Anyone can literally just take a screenshot of all that collection and put those in a different market, like Magic Eden. That's another NFT market. And we can detect, we have enough technology for those markets to not allow that. But they obviously allow it because they make money out of those trades. They don't make money out of you putting your collection in their market. They make money out of people trading. So they're the middlemen. So it's up to their advantage to have as many transactions as possible. So there's a lot of fraud. There's a lot of copyright infringement. As a matter of fact, I think I read this week that and somewhere in Dubai, Dubai and United Arab Emirates, they are at the forefront of digital policy. So you could go to jail if you do this in Dubai. So they actually, one person was charged criminally and went to jail in Dubai for doing an NFT scam. So it is going to be up to governments and legislation and policy to also protect us as users. Right now, it's kind of the wild, wild west when it comes to NFTs. Um, so that's NFT as collectibles. Now, let's look at NFTs as a utility. All right. So if you've seen this before, you're probably familiar. This is the board Ape Yacht Club. There's a whole thing about apes in the NFT communities. And now we can actually embed code into the NFT that can give us value over time. So what is this value? That could be royalties for the creator. That could be access to events that only NFT holders will have access to, let's say, a party, a concert. That could be access to merchandise, to limited merchandise. So a lot of the NFTs that I collect, for example, by owning the NFT, I also get the 3D file that I can print on my 3D printer at home. Some of the NFTs also will actually get you a physical product through the mail. So you buy the NFT, and then you get also some sort of merchandise um, or tangible product as well that is connected to that NFT. You might have access to staking. Staking is when you can actually make money if you put your NFT as collateral in the blockchain. So it will give you rewards in the forms of crypto. So most NFT collections, they have a roadmap. So let me put some links on the chat. That's one of the things that you want to look at if you want to be part of an NFT community. Also, another big aspect of NFTs are the community. So you are part of a community. You join a Discord server. You probably uh, join some social media accounts, and it creates a community of those NFT holders. So that could also deliver some value over time. Well, I can put those later. I can share the links later. But most NFT collections these days have a roadmap. So phase one, NFT launch. Phase two, we're going to start sending, I don't know, hats to the first, 100 owners, and so on and so on. Some of these NFTs have become brands of their own. This is a good example. The CryptoPunks is a good example. Board Ape, that's a good example. These actually become brands. And these NFTs have become companies of their own, with a CEO, with a CMO, with designers, with marketers, with art directors. So it's very interesting how some of these NFT projects have evolved. Now, 98% of all NFT projects are going to fail, right? I particularly don't buy NFTs with the idea of selling them later for profit. I buy them because I like them. And I buy them because I follow those particular artists. Now, sometimes I can get them for a good price, sometimes I can't. And so if I can afford it, I just don't buy them. But to me, they have, value. Okay, if it gets to a point where my collection is worth something, just like you can save comic books or baseball cards through the years, there might be a possibility that someone might buy your NFTs later on because they, gain value. Most of the time, they don't get value; they actually lose value. Um, Most of the time, is probably a money grabbing project, something that was just put out there. Anytime that you hear that a celebrity endorsed an NFT or bought an NFT, you can't really confront that. You don't know if that celebrity just allows someone to use their name for publicity, um, or if it's some sort of deal that they made with the celebrity in which they were going to get some sort of kickback or something. Okay. So there's a lot of ways that you can inflate the value of an NFT, just like there's ways that you can inflate the value of art or a house, for example. Okay. So the market forces are not different from the real world and the digital world. It's the same market forces: supply and demand, scarcity, exclusivity, all of that, right? And let's talk about NFTs as proof. And this is when we get into the actual industrial uh, applications of NFTs. One of the most promising ways it could be in college degree verification, of credentials verification. So remember that an NFT lives in a public blockchain. It cannot be modified. All right, once that NFT or that token or that record in the blockchain is created, it cannot be modified. It's going to be there forever, and it's going to be confirmed by all of the other computers that are in that blockchain, in that network. So there's a lot of fraud when it comes to degrees, especially in Southeast Asia, India, where companies do require people to have a degree to get a job. I'm sure it also happens in the US. So if degrees are issued in the form of NFT, anyone can confirm the validity of that degree, of that particular record, right? So that's a very interesting application. Real estate, property, right? So uh, we have digitized a lot of this already, but if you own a house, you know that what gives you ownership of that house is the title to the house, which is literally a piece of paper, right? So if we bring those records to the blockchain, they can be verified. If you ever bought a house, you have to get something called title insurance, because there could be a possibility that that title was transferred from one person to another um, in a fraudulent way or in an incorrect way, and you could be liable for that. Someone could come to your house and say, "This is not your house. I have ownership of the original title," right? It does happen because you need to get title insurance when you buy a house. So if we bring that to the blockchain, we wouldn't have that problem because no one could fake that record in the blockchain. Medical records, not sure how would that work, but I read to some companies that claim that they use the blockchain for medical records. Um, Intellectual property, right? Things like copyright or patents, right? So if we put that in the blockchain, now there is a secure way that all this can be verified and confirmed. And supply chain, right? So being able to use the blockchain for faster decisions in the supply chain, because there's never going to be a question of how much inventory or how much actual material needs to be moved or it needs to be transported. It's in the blockchain, it's verifiable, it's immutable. All right, so there's a lot of applications in this space. All right, so let's look at to see how brands are investing in the metaverse. Okay, again, a metaverse is just a buzzword. We'll just use it for the sake of this presentation, but the metaverse can mean a lot of things. So we know how technology is shaping how we live our lives, right? 10 years ago, we didn't have Instagram, right? And now it's almost unthinkable that someone doesn't have an Instagram account or a Facebook account, right? So it does take time, but it gets to a point which these technologies become part of our vernacular, part of our daily lives. 62% of people have a stronger relationship with a brand if they have a strong digital presence. So 70% of lower users agree that everyday life and activities depend on technology. So we are more involved with technology as part of our daily lives. And brands are capitalizing on this. They know that they have to have a digital presence in order to gain credibility, especially with the new generation, right? So 10, 20 years ago, the biggest consumer demographic in the US was boomers. Now the biggest consumer demographic is millennials. Very soon it's going to be Generation Z, okay? So how are these different generations engaging with technology? This is something that brands and companies are always asking themselves. They need to be updated to see what is happening in terms of trends in technology. So here's a good example of how different industries are using the metaverse. Okay, so Nike opened a Nike Land in Roblox. If you have kids, you know what Roblox is, right? Because they're always playing Roblox. In addition, a metaverse, a virtual world, in order to qualify as a metaverse virtual world, it has to have its own economy. Okay, that's why things like the old, like The Sims and what's it called, Second Life, those are mostly video games. There was no economy around them. These applications, that live on the blockchain have a value, and that's what a lot of these companies are trying to capitalize on. Not only for the branding, for also for the business, right? So Nike partnered with Roblox, and they're using they have Nike Land in Roblox. Gucci partnered with Plastic Heart to create a limited collection of NFTs. That's high fashion. We have food companies, consumer companies like Wendy. They opened a Wendy location in the Central Land, which is one of the most popular blockchain virtual worlds out there. Stella Artois, the beer brand, also release a series of NFTs that would allow you to compete to compete in a race, in a horse race. Lego recently partnered with Epic Games to create a metaverse. And I think this is going to be very successful because Lego, a big part of this whole metaverse thing is the storytelling. There has to be a story that puts this together. Otherwise, it's just a gimmick. And who better than Lego for storytelling, right? They have built an entire product around um, letting children become creators. And they have also not only used brands successfully, like Star Wars and Batman, but also created their own brands or their own character lines like Ninjago. So bringing all of that into some sort of virtual reality metaverse platform, I believe is going to be very successful. Now, there's a big question about how this technology is going to affect kids and their development. And, we're still asking ourselves how social media affects society, right? Misinformation, fake news, depression, suicide. I don't know the answer to that. We're probably going to find, years from now. But there is definitely a concern by parents and by, groups of exposing kids to these technologies early on, right? Officially, in the Oculus guidelines, it says that you should not use Oculus or virtual reality if you're younger than 13. Okay, so there is a guidelines around age limitations for virtual reality. So I'm not sure to what point there's going to be a study or some guidelines about how children are going to use these technologies. Nike bought a company called Artifact that creates NFT sneakers. And this is huge in fashion. I think probably fashion and apparel is probably the industry that is making the most innovation when it comes to NFTs and NFT utility. Nike definitely at the forefront. They have invested a lot of money in the metaverse, and also they have created an entire department for metaverse. They created a new position called Metaverse Chief Officer, and they hired someone to lead their metaverse initiatives. And I'm gonna show you some job postings. You could literally go to LinkedIn and job section and search for metaverse. And if you did this 2 years ago, you probably didn't get anything. Now you're getting hundreds of job posts with the keyword metaverse. So where are the careers? Where are the careers in the metaverse? Okay, gaming. We know gaming is huge. There's careers in design, in game design. There's careers in advertising. We know that Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard for, I forget how many $billions, but that was a huge acquisition. And they have announced that they're looking into ways to offer ads in-game ads. So just like you have ads in social media, they're going to be targeted ads in gaming. Okay. We know product placement. You do that in movies, TV. That's also something that could be potentially done in gaming, product placement. We know that in gaming, there's all kinds of jobs in art direction, design, sound design. So when it comes to metaverse gaming and how these games are going to become their own continuous universes, virtual universes, I believe that there's going to be a lot of job opportunities in this specific field. Community. So now we know that there's events that happen in the metaverse. There are concerts that happen in the metaverse, and that could create a brand new set of careers in marketing, in event planning, in community management. Okay. Exclusivity. So now that's when we get into fashion, we get into product design, again, events. You know, you could have events where only people that are holders of the NFT can actually attend the event, either in person um, or in a virtual world. And commerce. So marketing opportunities, markets, crypto markets, NFTs, influencers, creators, royalties. So there's a lot of opportunities, job opportunities, or career opportunities in the metaverse. So now what we see is basically we have the big tech companies in a race to see who's going to dominate this technology, right? We see massive investment from Microsoft, massive investment from Facebook, massive investment from Apple. You know, it's all a rumor, but at this point, you know, there's so many of them that there's probably going to become a reality. Amazon just announced last week that they're working on an AR or mixed reality product. So everyone wants a piece of this. And we know that when it comes to big tech, the winner takes all. So what we'll see is massive investment in this technology with the hopes that, you know, one company is going to be the one to kind of lead or dominate, right? Hopefully that's not what is going to happen, and that's not what people want, right? We want a decentralized metaverse. We don't want a centralized metaverse like in the movie Ready Player One or the novel Snow Crash. We want a decentralized metaverse. Now, how that's going to work, still, you know, TBD. But ideally, that's the future that we should be thinking about, a decentralized metaverse. So here's a job posting for manager of metaverse experience at Time Magazine. So again, bringing the experience, the credibility of a brand like Time Magazine into a metaverse experience. That could be virtual reality, it could be augmented reality, it could be NFTs, it could be all of them. Okay, it doesn't have to be one, it could be all of those technologies together. Nike, they definitely have created a lot of new opportunities in the metaverse. Here's a job. Yeah, that is a that is a good point in the chat, right? The decentralization goes against every business model, right? Because the whole point of capitalism is to kind of centralize things, to have control of the price of the supply and demand. But you know, who knows where things are going? Um, uh, these different metaverses, they well, we'll talk about that later. So let's look at this job postings, right? So these are real. You can look at LinkedIn right now and search for metaverse, and you'll find there's a lot of opportunities now. So this is for Nike Virtual Studios, lead product designer. So now this is in the product design space. They're using the terms Web3 and metaverse. NFTs is part of the job description. So these technologies are not longer something that is fringe. This is not fringe anymore. This is not something niche or specific to some obscure community. This is mainstream now. And companies know this, and they're investing the strategies in these technologies. This is Accenture. So Accenture is a consulting firm. They're doing a lot of hiring. Something is going on. Maybe they got picked to supply staff for a big company. But I was just looking at these jobs this morning, and there's like dozens of metaverse related jobs from Accenture. So they're probably staffing a big corporation right now. They're not going to tell who, but they're doing a lot of hiring for consulting positions. So this says XR design lead. XR stands for mixed reality, leading the creation of XR applications based on client requirements, creating detailed designs, documentation, UI, UX, diagrams, and concept art. So this is very specific to graphic designers or students in the advertising and design program. All right, that's where a lot of those design skills can translate into tangible skills for the metaverse careers. So what are the skills that our students need? Okay, what do we need to start teaching our students in order to get ready for these career opportunities? When it comes to the metaverse, we know that a lot of what these technologies have in common is that they are immersive and they're happening in a real space. So we need to start thinking about spatial design, UX and UI spatial design skills. Our students are used to design in a 2D space, whether they're designing for print or for web, that's a 2D space, right? The metaverse is a 3D space, it's a 360 environment. So developing the skills to design experiences and user interfaces in a 360 environment requires some specific thinking and technology. So we're not only designing the space, but also the audio. Spatial audio is a big part of virtual reality and augmented reality. 3D modeling skills, prototyping and testing, locomotion, that's how we move in the virtual environment. Um, most virtual reality applications, you're actually not moving in the real space, you're actually moving using some sort of locomotion. So that could be teletransport, or that could be, step by step. So understanding how to move and how to manipulate objects in a 3D environment is important. Ergonomics, the ergonomics of the device itself, how comfortable we are in that 3D space. There's something called motion sickness. If your virtual reality application happens too fast, that can give you motion sickness. If is what are the business skills? Yes, so we get to that part. Ergonomics also important. Now, when it comes to how we're interacting, human-computer interaction, and this usually is something that is studied in academia. So you see technical schools like MIT, Stanford, they all have a human interaction department. But this is also now being brought to UX and UI design, because we need to understand now how people interact with computers, but how computers interact with people. And that's what human-computer interaction is about. Is the study of how humans interact with technology. So that could be in a visual form, so interacting with screens. That could be in haptics, so interacting with things that are actually giving us some sort of physical output, vibration, heat, cold, user interface design, understanding the loss of user experience, specifically the Doherty threshold, which basically explains how our brain can more or less, we know that computers are faster than the human brain, right? So there has to be a good balance between the input of the user and the output of the computer. There has to be a good correlation. If one is faster than the other, then the interaction starts to have issues. Programming skills, this is something I particularly always telling my students, learn programming, whether it's JavaScript, whether it's whatever it is, learn one programming language. Those concepts can apply to other things. It doesn't necessarily have to be for software development. They can apply to other design fields. And psychology, right? It's how humans interact with how using emotion and storytelling can enhance that human-computer interaction. Now, when it comes to actual hard skills, tools, and platforms, definitely 3D design skills. So 3D modeling, lighting, asset management and creation, being able to not only create assets, 3D assets, but also to manage them. Animation, character design, rigging, all of those 3D skills are going to be very important for the metaverse. Okay. So what are the tools that we can start teaching right now without any investment, without any budget or any investment? So these are classroom ready tools. All of these tools are free. Okay. So Unity, Unreal is free. That's what we use to create 3D environments for virtual reality, augmented reality, gaming, even movies. People actually create movies with Unity and Unreal, 3D movies. Blender is free. Okay, so it's for 3D modeling and animation. When it comes to augmented reality, there's something called Spark, which is a software platform by Facebook, Meta. You can use that to create Instagram filters, but you can also use that to create actual AR experiences, full AR experiences. And when it comes to the web and virtual reality, there's something called A-Frame, which is a JavaScript library. It doesn't cost anything, that allows the people to create virtual environments for the web. So you're looking at this through the browser. So if you were to experience one of these virtual reality worlds that is built on A-Frame, you will have to put on your headset and visit that page through the browser in the headset. So these are not standalone applications. These are applications that live in the browser. So this is something that you could start using right now. It doesn't cost anything. Um, it's just a matter of downloading the program and start using it. A lot of these work with the freemium model. So it's free for students, but as soon as you create an enterprise application or something that actually is generating revenue, then you have to get the professional license or the pro license. All right, is everyone familiar with Blender, Unity, Unreal? These are household names at this point, right? Spark AR and A-Frame are maybe more niche, but these are things that you can download and start using right away. Now, how can you teach these skills in using the metaverse? So you could teach these skills in a regular classroom environment or computer lab, or you could use the metaverse to actually teach these things. So there's collaboration and prototyping tools. There are virtual collaboration platforms like Horizon Workrooms, where you will have to wear the headset, or you could access the experience through the browser and collaborate in real time with other people, share models, draw together, experience collaboration in 3D, in a 3D environment. And there's also VR prototyping tools. So these are prototyping tools, very similar to things like Figma or Adobe XD, but for 3D, for virtual reality. And there's a free tool from Microsoft called Microsoft Maquette, and you can install it on Oculus Quest, and you can start prototyping on that specific tool. Now, there are tools that allow you to do this, but in a collaboration environment. But there's one called Shapes XR, which is really good, but that you need to buy a seat. You need to buy a license, basically. You need to buy a number of seats to actually use it in the classroom, and it's not cheap. So this you can use for free right away. Okay, so if you have an Oculus Quest, or you can download these and start experiencing what it is to collaborate virtually or to start prototyping user interfaces in VR. Now, Adobe has kind of been slowly getting into 3D tools and immersive technologies. We all know Adobe because they're the leading company when it comes to graphic design software, Photoshop, Illustrator. So they have been doing a lot of investment and catch up with a lot of these technologies. So Adobe has a product called Aero, Adobe Aero. That's for augmented reality. So if you have a Adobe CC subscription, you can download Aero and start using it. You can start building augmented reality experiences on your computer and deploy them to the phone. Right now, it only works on iPhone or iPads. So you can create the experience on Windows or Mac, but to actually see it working on the phone, it only works with iPhone. Adobe also has launched a series of 3D tools like Substance. It's called the Substance family. All of this is for 3D modeling. So there's Substance Stager, Substance Painter, Substance Sampler, Substance Designer. And there's a new one that's still in beta, which is Substance 3D Modeler. So they're competing with the leading 3D software companies like Maya, that's from Autodesk. I believe there's something called Rhino that is also for 3D modeling. I believe they use that in jewelry and product design, if I'm not mistaken. 3D Max, that's another very popular software title. So Adobe is kind of making their way into this whole new 3D platforms and tools. Now, there is a way that that we can also create immersive classrooms in the metaverse. Okay, so I wanted to show this video just to kind of to break the conversation. Let me stop sharing, and I'm going to play this video for you.
So, we're gonna have an astrophysicist in the family.
Actually, I have to write this paper. Will you help me?
Let's take a closer look. What part of the solar system are we talking about?
Saturn.
If you were taking astrophysics, you could study in the metaverse.
Did you know the rings are made up of billions of icy particles?
Really?
Look at this.
You ready to do that paper now, right?
Yeah.
In the metaverse, you'll be able to teleport not just to any place, but any time as well. Ancient Rome.
So this is by Meta. So this is the same company as Facebook. They really pushing this concept of the metaverse. But if you notice, a lot of what they put in these videos is computer generated. This is not a real simulation of how this will look like in an actual device. So there is a lot of investment in classroom virtual education through virtual classrooms. There's a company called Engage. There's a company called Victory VR, which basically allows schools to have virtual classrooms where they can, let's say, dissect a frog without actually having to do it with a real dead frog. Also, industrial training. So if you want to train, let's say, someone on in civil engineering or mechanics, now you don't need to invest in all of that hardware. You could probably do the training in a virtual environment where they actually interact with that specific engine, machine, whatever it is, which is a real representation of the machine, what they will be fixing. All right, so I'm almost at the end of my presentation, but I wanted to introduce you to the FIT Metaverse Club. So this is a club that I started. I helped found with some of my students from the advertising and design department. So it's a new club. They are looking for for new officials for next semester. And the purpose of the club is to educate and promote, to help students get the metaverse, the job skills for the metaverse, to do charity fundraising with crypto, and to promote department cross collaboration. So a lot of the members in the group are actually from the fashion design department, and it was just so good to see students in graphics and illustration and advertising to talk to other students from other departments and talk about the metaverse and NFTs and how these technologies are being used in the specific fields. We have a roadmap for the Metaverse Club. We are launching a NFT collection for members. Is going to smart contract where only members that attend meetings more than 3 times in a semester can actually get a membership NFT. And that NFT is dated, so it will have the semester, and it will basically be kind of a proof of attendance to the club. Okay. Now that NFT cannot be traded for money. It cannot be traded for other crypto. The whole purpose of using an NFT is for the utility. Now, this NFT could give the students specific access to events or other virtual happenings with the club. We also have a project to digitize the FIT campus and turn it and put it on the blockchain. So actually create a record of the NFT campus in the blockchain. Also, we're doing technical workshops. We'll have guest speakers, and the idea is that in the long term that we can connect our club members with companies that are using Web3 technologies for either collaboration or some or possible job opportunities. All right, so that is probably the long-term roadmap, but we're working on the NFT collection, and we're going to launch it on Solana, on the Solana network. So if you want to get an NFT membership, you have to be a member of the club. And the way that those are issued is through a website, through a minting website. So only the students that attend up to 3 meetings of the club will have access to the website. They will need to have their own wallet, their own crypto wallet, and then they can go to the website and mint an NFT. Now the collection is a collection of 60 NFTs, and there's 10 NFTs that are have more rarity. So when you create an NFT collection, you can't just make all NFTs the same, right? Otherwise, they don't have exclusivity and they don't have a scarcity value. So when you mint an NFT, you don't know what you're gonna get. So it's like those eggs, the toy eggs that you buy, or those what's it called, the LOL dolls. You buy the toy, you open it, you don't know what you're gonna get. You might get a regular doll, or you might get one of the most rare dolls. So that's also one of the aspects of the NFT. When you mint an NFT for the first time, meaning you're gonna be the first owner, you're gonna have the first record of that NFT on the blockchain. You don't know what NFT you're gonna get. You might get just a regular NFT, or you might get the very exclusive NFT that probably will have more value over time. So that's what we're going to use for the memberships, and this is just a good example of how to use NFTs in a learning environment. You can use it as incentives. You can use it as a way to increase participation. You can use it as a way of encouraging students, let's say, to turn in homework or projects, kind of as a competition with a gamification layer on it. That's it. Thank you so much. I know that I threw a lot of information at you. I hope that you found the talk interesting. Again, this is an ever-evolving space, and it's changing every week. So it's been very exciting to see where companies and communities are taking all of these metaverse technologies.